It was close to midnight when I left the gas station off Highway 41, somewhere between two nameless towns that barely showed up on the map. The road stretched straight ahead, cutting through miles of empty land, flat fields, thin patches of woods, and the occasional flicker of a farmhouse light miles away. I had been driving for almost 9 hours, and the tiredness was settling deep behind my eyes. The kind of tiredness that makes your thoughts blur and your focus slip a little every few minutes. I still had about 3 more hours before reaching the motel I'd booked, but I didn't want to pull over. I just wanted to keep moving. The road was empty, black asphalt glowing faintly under my headlights. The white lane markings seemed to flow endlessly, hypnotic in their rhythm. My phone sat on the passenger seat, the GPS app showing nothing but a long, straight blue line. I had no signal, but it didn't matter. The highway was simple, just drive straight, keep moving, stay awake. The air outside was cold enough that I kept the windows up, but the heater inside the car was off. I didn't like the warmth when I was tired, it made my eyelids heavier. I kept the radio low, just a soft hum of some late-night station fading in and out. The announcer's voice cracked through static every few minutes. Sometimes the silence was stronger than the noise. I passed a road sign that said the next rest stop was 36 miles away. The thought of pulling over and stretching crossed my mind, but I brushed it off. The dark open highway had a strange pull to it. Quiet, steady, almost comforting. I just kept driving. About 20 minutes later, I saw something in the distance. Red lights ahead, dim and barely moving. It took a moment to realize they were taillights. I hadn't seen another car for almost an hour, so the sight instantly caught my attention. The vehicle was moving slower than I was, drifting slightly within its lane. I figured it was someone as tired as me, maybe trying to stay awake too. As I got closer, I noticed it was an old dark-colored sedan, the kind from the late 90s or early 2000s. The back bumper was dented, and the left taillight was cracked, flickering every few seconds. I stayed behind it for a bit, keeping my distance, letting my headlights light up the faded paint and the dirt streaks across the rear windshield. There was something odd about how it moved. Steady but uneven, like the driver wasn't fully focused or maybe fighting sleep. After a few minutes, I decided to pass it. I switched to the left lane, slowly overtaking. As I came up alongside, I couldn't stop myself from glancing over. The driver's window was half down, and I could barely see a shape inside. Just a shadow sitting perfectly still. The headlights from my car washed over the inside of the vehicle for a second, but the driver didn't move, not even a little. No reaction, no flicker of movement, just stillness. When I got ahead of it, I glanced in my rearview mirror. The car stayed in its lane, the headlights glowing faint behind me, small and far away. I remember thinking maybe they were drunk, or maybe someone too tired to realize how close they were to falling asleep. I tried not to think too much of it. About 10 minutes later, I checked the mirror again, and the car was closer, much closer. I hadn't slowed down at all, but the sedan was right behind me now, maybe 3 or 4 car lengths away. The headlights glared bright in the mirror, almost blinding. I kept my eyes on the road, but a part of me started to feel tense. It wasn't tailgating exactly, but it was close enough to make me uncomfortable. I thought about speeding up, but I was already going above the limit. The highway was narrow and dark. No streetlights, no other cars, just the two of us in that stretch of black road. The red glow of my taillights bounced off the pavement behind me, and his headlights stayed locked in the same position, steady, following perfectly. I tried to shake off the uneasy feeling. I told myself it was nothing, just another driver trying to stay alert by following the only car around. But the longer it went on, the worse it felt. I drove another 5 minutes, and the distance didn't change. Not an inch. Then something changed. The headlights behind me swerved slightly, moving toward the center line, then back, then again. It wasn't a full drift, just small, deliberate movements. I couldn't tell if they were trying to get my attention or mess with me. My stomach tightened. The stretch of highway was endless. No exits, no gas stations, nothing but that thin line cutting through nowhere. I took a deep breath and focused on the yellow lines ahead. My hands felt tight on the steering wheel. My heart was beating faster now, Not from panic, but from a growing, steady sense of dread. I could feel it building with every second that the headlights stayed behind me. After what felt like forever, I saw a green sign up ahead, Rest Area 5 miles. I didn't plan on stopping before, but the moment I saw it, I knew I had to. I slowed down slightly, just enough to keep control, hoping maybe the car would pass me. But it didn't. The headlights stayed exactly the same distance behind. When the exit finally came into view, I flipped my turn signal on, easing onto the off-ramp. My eyes kept flicking to the rearview mirror. The car followed. I felt my stomach drop. The rest stop was small, just a few parking spaces, 2 vending machines, a dim light near the bathroom building, and one old pickup truck parked far off. The sedan followed me into the lot. I pulled into a space near the building, keeping the engine running. The sedan parked 2 spots away. The lights stayed on. No one got out. I waited, my hand on the gear shift, my eyes glued to the mirror. The seconds dragged by. I could see faint movement inside the car, but not clearly enough to tell what the person was doing. I didn't want to get out. I didn't want to turn off the car either. My brain was racing, trying to come up with reasons that made sense. Maybe they were scared of me. Maybe they thought I was following them earlier and now we'd both stopped for the same reason. But something about it didn't feel like coincidence. The way they'd followed so close. The way they'd parked almost in line with me. After a full minute of sitting there, I shifted into reverse. The instant my backup lights came on, the sedan's headlights flicked off. My pulse jumped. I reversed slowly, watching the car. Still no movement. Then I put it in drive and pulled back toward the highway exit. As soon as I did, their lights came back on. They started moving again, following. I floored the gas. My tires kicked gravel as I sped out of the rest area and back onto the highway. The sedan followed, matching my speed perfectly. My heart was pounding so hard it felt like it was shaking my chest. I pushed the car up to 85, then 90, the engine humming loud in the silence. The sedan stayed right there, not trying to pass, not falling behind, just following. I kept going like that for miles until I saw faint blue lights ahead. A state trooper parked on the shoulder, maybe running radar. I didn't even think. I slammed the brakes and pulled over just ahead of him, jerking the car to a stop on the gravel. I turned off the headlights but left the engine running. The sedan sped past in the right lane, no hesitation, no brake lights, just gone into the dark again. I sat there for a long moment, shaking. The trooper never came over, probably thinking I was just another tired driver pulling over to rest. I sat until my breathing slowed, staring at the stretch of black road ahead. After about 10 minutes, I pulled back onto the highway. I never saw the sedan again. When I finally reached the motel near dawn, my whole body felt drained. Not from the drive, but from the hours of tension that had sat inside me like a knot. I checked into the room, locked the door, and stood by the window for a while, staring out at the empty parking lot. Every time headlights passed on the main road, I felt that same chill climb up my spine. In the morning, I looked at my car. The rear bumper was covered in a layer of road dust, except for one small clean spot. A smudge about the size of a palm, right above the license plate, like someone had wiped it with their hand. I never knew who was in that car or why they followed me. Maybe it was someone just as paranoid as me, or maybe someone waiting for a moment when I'd finally pull over again. Whatever the reason, I learned something that night: highways aren't empty. They only look that way. There's always something out there, moving in the dark, just far enough behind you that you don't see it until it's too late. It was a little past 11 p.m. when I started my drive home. I had spent the whole day working 2 towns over, and instead of getting a motel, I decided to drive through the night. I wanted to sleep in my own bed, even if it meant hours on the road. The route I was taking wasn't one of the main highways. It was a long 2-lane stretch that ran through farmland, forest, and long open fields. Hardly any traffic passed there at night. It was quiet, almost too quiet. The sky was overcast, the kind that doesn't let the moonlight through, so everything outside the reach of my headlights was swallowed by black. The white lines down the center of the road flashed by in a steady rhythm, almost hypnotic. I had the radio off, and the only sounds were the hum of the engine, the tires on the asphalt, and the faint whistle of wind sneaking through the window sill. I felt calm at first, just tired, thinking about nothing except keeping the wheel straight and my speed steady. About 30 minutes into the drive, I passed a green road sign that said the next gas station was 42 miles ahead. I checked the fuel gauge, a little under half a tank. Enough to make it, so I didn't bother stopping anywhere earlier. I hadn't seen another car in a long time. It was strange, being completely alone on such a long, open stretch of road. The world outside looked like it didn't even exist anymore. Just my headlights cutting through a narrow tunnel of light surrounded by total darkness. After another 20 minutes or so, I saw something ahead. A pair of red taillights, dim and distant. The first car I'd seen in nearly an hour. It was moving slower than I was, maybe 10 miles under the limit. I didn't mind. I wasn't in a rush. I just slowed down a little and kept a steady distance behind it. The car looked old, maybe a mid-2000s silver sedan. It had a dent on the right side of the bumper, and the rear window was covered with grime and dust. The license plate was too dirty to read. The taillights had that dull red glow that looked tired, like the bulbs had been on their last stretch for years. I drove behind it for a few minutes, keeping maybe 5 car lengths between us. Then something odd caught my attention. The car drifted slightly to the side, then corrected itself, then drifted again. Not enough to cross lanes, just enough to notice. I thought maybe the driver was tired or distracted, but the longer I watched, the stranger it felt. The movements weren't random, they were slow, almost deliberate, like someone trying to stay within sight but not make it obvious. I decided to pass. The road ahead was straight and clear. I turned on my signal, switched lanes, and started to overtake. As I pulled alongside, I glanced at the driver's side window, but it was completely dark inside. I couldn't see anything. The glass had some reflection from my headlights, but even through that, there was no shape, no silhouette, just darkness. I didn't linger. I sped up and got in front of it. My heart had picked up a little, though I told myself it was just my imagination. Maybe the windows were tinted, or maybe my headlights made it hard to see inside. But a weird feeling settled in my gut, the kind that doesn't really make sense but still sticks there. For the next 10 minutes, I drove steadily, keeping my focus ahead. Then I checked the mirror. The same car was still behind me. Not too close, not too far, just matching my speed perfectly. Its headlights looked dim, one slightly yellower than the other. I ignored it for a while, but every time I glanced at the mirror, it was still there, keeping that exact distance. The road had long stretches without any turns, and I started to wonder why they hadn't passed me if they were heading the same way. The idea that they might be intentionally staying behind me began to grow in my mind. The next town was still miles away. There were no exits, no gas stations, nothing but darkness on both sides. My palms felt damp on the steering wheel. The car behind me stayed glued in place. At one point, I slowed down a bit just to see what they'd do. Instantly, they slowed too. When I sped up again, they matched my speed. That's when the tension really started to crawl up my spine. This wasn't a coincidence. Whoever was behind me was watching me. My thoughts raced. Maybe it was just someone nervous, using my headlights as a guide in the dark. Maybe they didn't realize how creepy it looked. But deep down, I didn't believe that. The way they mirrored every small change I made, it was too precise. I kept driving, my eyes flicking from the road to the mirror every few seconds. The miles crawled by. Then, after about 20 more minutes, I saw something ahead. A faint blue glow in the distance. A gas station sign. It looked like a small one, probably one of those all-night stations with just a few pumps and a single store. I decided to stop there. Not just for gas, I needed to see what this car would do. I eased onto the right lane and pulled into the station's entrance. The gravel crunched under my tires as I rolled to a stop by one of the pumps. The car behind me drove right past. No hesitation, no slowing, just kept going down the highway and disappeared into the night. For a moment, I felt stupid. Maybe it really was nothing. Maybe I'd built the whole thing up in my head after too many hours alone in the dark. I filled the tank, stretched a little, and grabbed a bottle of water from the small store. When I came back out, the highway looked completely empty again. I got back in my car and started driving again, feeling more relaxed now. But that peace didn't last long. About 20 minutes later, I saw headlights ahead, far in the distance, coming toward me. As I got closer, the shape of the vehicle came into view. A silver sedan. My stomach dropped. It looked exactly like the one from before. Same dim headlights, same dull color. It passed me going the opposite direction, and for a split second, I thought I must have been wrong. But then I looked in the rearview mirror. The red taillights of the car lit up, and then it turned around. It was behind me again. I felt my throat tighten. The idea that this person had looped around somehow, maybe taking a side road or an access lane, made my skin crawl. I pressed the gas harder. The speedometer climbed past 80. The car behind me kept up without struggle. Its headlights bounced on the dips in the road. Always there. I kept scanning for an exit, a sign, a driveway, anything. But there was nothing, just endless black highway stretching forward. The fuel gauge needle was back down slightly under 3/4, and I started thinking of how far I'd have to drive before I reached another town. The chase, if that's what it was, went on for at least another 15 minutes. My body was tense the whole time, every nerve on edge. I could feel the weight of that car behind me even when I wasn't looking. Then, in the distance, I saw flashing lights, a roadwork site, bright yellow barriers, orange cones, a temporary speed limit sign. My chest eased a little. There were workers up ahead, trucks, maybe even a police car directing traffic. I slowed as I approached the area. The car behind me slowed too. As I entered the lit zone, I realized there were no workers. The site looked abandoned. Machinery parked to the side, signs half-folded, cones scattered. The lights were still flashing, but no one was there. I drove through slowly, eyes darting between the machinery and the mirror. The sedan kept perfect distance. Right at the end of the construction zone, something caught my eye. A small dirt road broke off to the right, half hidden behind a road-closed sign. Without thinking, I turned hard and took it. My tires kicked dust into the air as I sped down the narrow path. Curved around, then sloped upward slightly. After a few seconds, I turned off my headlights. My heart was hammering so loud I could hear it in my ears. I coasted to a stop behind some bushes and waited. The highway was quiet. I could see faint light through the trees, the sedan's headlights. It slowed at the turn but didn't follow. Kept going. I sat there for another 10 minutes, barely breathing. When I finally got back on the road, the highway was empty again. I didn't see another car for the rest of the drive. By the time I reached my town, the sky was turning gray with dawn. I parked in my driveway and just sat there for a long time, trying to calm down. My hands were trembling slightly, and my body ached from sitting tense for so long. A few hours later, when I checked the car before heading out again, I noticed something strange. On the back bumper, just under the license plate, there was a scrape. Not deep, but fresh, the paint slightly peeled. I ran my fingers over it and saw faint smudges, like someone's hand had brushed against the dust there. I never knew who was in that sedan or what they wanted. Maybe it was someone trying to scare me for fun. Maybe something worse. But since that night, I can't drive long stretches of empty highway anymore. Every time I see headlights in the mirror, staying a little too long, I feel that same tightness in my chest, that same cold awareness that someone might be watching. The road isn't empty, not really. Sometimes it just hides the wrong kind of people in the dark. It was almost midnight when I was driving through Nevada, heading east along a long stretch of empty desert highway. I'd been on the road for hours, trying to make it to Utah before dawn. The sky was black and wide, stars scattered across it like pinholes in a sheet. The road looked endless, two faded yellow lines stretching straight ahead. No curves, no traffic, just miles of cracked asphalt and desert on both sides. My headlights carved out a narrow tunnel of light in front of me, beyond which everything dissolved into darkness. The desert felt alive in its own way, still and quiet, yet heavy with that uneasy silence that comes when you're far from anything human. The air was dry, and my car's AC barely did anything. My eyes were starting to sting from staring at the road for so long. I hadn't seen another vehicle for at least half an hour, maybe longer. The only sounds were the tires humming against the asphalt and the faint rattle of loose change in the cup holder. I remember thinking how isolated that road felt, how small I was in that huge stretch of nothing. Then, in the rearview mirror, I saw headlights appear behind me. At first, I didn't think much of it, just another driver heading the same way. The lights were far back, small and steady, but after a few minutes, they grew brighter. The vehicle was gaining on me. I glanced again. It looked like a white cargo van. Plain, no logos, no markings. Just a boxy, nondescript van. It stayed behind me for a while, keeping a steady distance. I was doing about 65, the speed limit. The van didn't try to pass, which I found strange. Usually, on those open stretches, people either fly past you or disappear behind. This one just stayed there, close enough that I could see its headlights reflecting off my trunk. I sped up a little. The van sped up too. First, I brushed it off. Maybe the driver was just zoning out like me, or maybe they were being cautious. But when I pushed the speedometer up to 75, the van stayed right behind. I slowed back down to 60. It slowed down too. It wasn't random anymore. It was matching me. The unease started to creep in then. There was something deliberate about the way that van stayed with me. I turned the radio down and kept glancing at the mirror every few seconds. The road stretched out like a ribbon. No turns, no exits in sight. Nothing but darkness and desert scrub on either side. The van's headlights looked blindingly bright now, washing out everything behind me. I drove like that for another 15 minutes, trying not to let my mind spiral. But the van never backed off. The distance between us stayed almost exact. I tried to tell myself maybe they were just nervous about driving alone out there, sticking close for safety, but it didn't make sense. Nobody in their right mind tailgates on an empty desert highway for miles. When I saw a green highway sign up ahead showing a small town exit about 2 miles away, I decided to take it. I didn't need gas, but I figured pulling off might shake whoever was behind me. I slowed down gradually, watching the headlights behind me. The van slowed too, matching perfectly. That was when I knew something was wrong. I took the exit, a narrow off-ramp that curved toward a dimly lit gas station and a few shuttered buildings. The van followed right behind, its headlights bouncing slightly as it came down the ramp. My pulse was hammering. I turned onto the small 2-lane road leading to the station, pretending I hadn't noticed. I eased into the gas station lot and parked by the pumps. The place looked deserted except for a flickering light near the entrance. I cut my engine and waited. The van didn't pull in. It slowed on the road, coasting by, then stopped a little ways past the station. Its headlights went off. I sat there gripping the steering wheel, watching the dark shape of it sitting there, maybe 50 yards away. No movement, just a black outline of a van under the dim glow of a streetlight. I felt that sharp animal panic that makes your hands go numb. I didn't know what to do. I didn't want to get out, but I also didn't want to just sit there waiting. I started my car again and pretended to drive away, circling behind the station. When I came around the other side, the van had its lights back on. It pulled back onto the main road, slowly following the direction I'd gone. I didn't go far. I pulled into the shadowed side of the building and turned my lights off. I waited there in total darkness, barely breathing. A few seconds later, the van cruised past the gas station again, still slow, almost creeping. When it didn't see me, it stopped for a moment near the edge of the highway, then sped off into the distance. I waited another full minute before pulling back out, my hands shaking. I didn't even get gas. I just wanted to get back on the main road and out of there. I drove for miles after that, keeping an eye on my mirrors every few seconds, but I didn't see any headlights behind me again. Eventually, the adrenaline started to fade, replaced by exhaustion and that uneasy feeling that comes after fear. I found another gas station closer to dawn, this one with more lights and people around. I stopped there and stayed inside for a while, trying to calm down. I didn't tell anyone what happened. I just filled up, got coffee, and kept driving. For days after that, I couldn't shake it. I kept replaying it in my head, the way the van matched my speed, the way it stopped near the station, the way it left when I tried to hide. I started to wonder what would have happened if I hadn't pulled off. if I had just kept driving down that highway. Maybe they would have followed all night. Maybe they would have tried to run me off the road. 2 weeks later, I was sitting in a diner off the same route, eating breakfast before another long drive. The TV mounted in the corner was playing a local news segment. I wasn't really listening until I heard the words "white cargo van" and "highway abductions." The reporter was saying police had arrested a man driving a white van near the Nevada-Utah border. He'd been targeting travelers on remote highways, following them for miles, sometimes forcing them off the road or pretending to help when they stopped. Inside the van, they found restraints, tools, and personal belongings from multiple victims. My fork froze halfway to my mouth. The description matched exactly, the make, the color, everything. It hit me then how close I might have come to ending up one of those people. I sat there staring at the screen while the reporter showed a photo of the van being towed away. Same plain white box shape, same unmarked sides. The thought made my stomach turn. I remembered those blinding headlights, the way it crept behind me like it was studying me, waiting for the right moment. After that, I couldn't look at highways the same way again. Every long drive at night made my chest tighten. Every pair of headlights in my mirror made my hands grip the wheel a little harder. I stopped taking long trips alone after dark. What still unsettles me is how ordinary it looked. Just a white van, nothing special about it. You'd see 100 of them in any city, parked outside stores or loading docks. There was nothing about it that screamed danger until it was already there behind you, following your every move in the middle of nowhere. Sometimes I think about that moment at the gas station. How if I'd stepped out? If I'd walked over thinking maybe they needed help or wanted directions, it might have gone differently. Maybe they would have pulled me inside that van before anyone even noticed. Maybe I'd just be another name on a missing list. I've driven that stretch of road only once since then, during the day, and even then it felt wrong. The highway still looks endless, cutting through dry nothingness, and it's easy to imagine how someone could vanish out there without a trace. That night changed how I look at the road, how I look at people, how I understand danger. It's not always loud or obvious. Sometimes it's quiet, slow, patient. Just a pair of headlights in your mirror that never go away until they finally do. And by then, if you're lucky, you realize what almost happened before it's too late. I was 24 when I decided to drive alone from Colorado to Arizona. I just finished visiting my parents in Fort Collins and needed to get back to my apartment near Phoenix for work. I packed up my small sedan with my overnight bag, a thermos of coffee, and a few snacks, planning to make the whole trip in one go. It was about a 12-hour drive, mostly through long, empty stretches of highway cutting through desert and mountain. I liked driving at night because the roads were quiet and the air felt cooler, and I thought it would be peaceful. I didn't think twice about how isolated that route could get once the sun went down. By the time I hit southern Colorado, the sky had turned completely black. The road stretched endlessly ahead, a narrow strip of pavement between wide, empty plains. My headlights caught the edges of sagebrush and dust swirling in the wind, and beyond that, there was nothing but darkness. No towns, no lights, no movement. Just me and the faint hum of my tires. The clock on my dashboard read 11:47 p.m. when I first noticed headlights appear in my rearview mirror. They were far back at first, small and steady, maybe half a mile behind. I didn't think much of it. Seeing another vehicle on that empty stretch actually gave me a small sense of comfort. But after a while, I noticed the lights weren't fading. They stayed the same distance behind me, no matter how much I sped up or slowed down. I checked the mirror again. It looked like a dark blue sedan, maybe a few years old, the kind of car you'd never notice twice. I drove for another half hour, and the car stayed there. Always behind me, never too close, never far. The road wound through open desert, no exits, no side roads. The highway signs said the next rest stop was 20 miles ahead, and I decided I'd pull over there, stretch, maybe get out of the car for a bit. The thought of stopping alone in the middle of nowhere made me uneasy, but my eyes were burning from staring at the road and I needed a break. When I pulled into the rest stop, the place looked deserted. Just a few dim lights buzzing over empty parking spaces and a vending machine near the bathrooms. I parked close to the entrance and turned off my engine. A few seconds later, the dark blue sedan rolled in too. It didn't park right next to me, but close enough, 2 spaces away. My stomach tightened when I saw it stop. The engine stayed running for a few seconds, then went quiet. I sat there for a moment, debating whether to just leave, but the longer I hesitated, the more obvious it would look. I grabbed my bag and stepped out. The air was cold and dry, the kind that feels sharp in your lungs. I glanced toward the sedan. It was dark inside, the windshield too tinted to see through. I couldn't tell if someone was watching me. Inside the restroom, the fluorescent lights flickered. The silence felt heavy, just the faint echo of my footsteps. I moved quickly, trying not to think about the car outside. When I came back out, the parking lot was empty. The blue sedan was gone. The relief that hit me was instant and deep. I actually smiled to myself, feeling silly for getting so worked up. I got back into my car, locked the doors, and sat there for a minute before starting the engine. The road felt less lonely after that, and I told myself it was just a coincidence. Maybe the driver had stopped to rest and decided to leave when they saw me. An hour later, somewhere along the Arizona border, I saw those headlights again. Took me a few seconds to realize it. The same pale blue tint, the same way the beams hit the rear of my car. My heart started pounding hard enough that I could feel it in my throat. I kept glancing at the mirror, trying to make sure I wasn't imagining it, but there was no mistake. It was the same dark blue sedan. The same shape, the same steady distance. I pressed my foot on the gas, pushing past 70, then 75. The road was empty, not another set of headlights in sight. The sedan stayed right with me. I slowed down, thinking maybe they'd pass, but they didn't. They slowed too. That's when I started to really panic. My hands were shaking on the steering wheel, and every sound in the car suddenly felt louder. The rattle of a loose water bottle, the thump of my tires over cracks in the pavement. The thought crossed my mind to pull over again, but the highway was endless. No towns, no lights, just desert stretching in every direction. I didn't dare stop. Minutes dragged into what felt like hours. The car never left my mirror. I kept hoping for a gas station, a sign, anything that meant civilization. Finally, a green highway sign came up, 15 miles to the next exit. Felt like the longest 15 miles of my life. I didn't take my eyes off the mirror the entire time. The sedan's headlights kept that same perfect distance, not too close to look suspicious to anyone else, but close enough that I could feel it was deliberate. It was like whoever was driving was playing a game, waiting for something. I thought about calling 911, but my hands were too unsteady to grab my phone. I didn't want to take my eyes off the road. When I finally did, I fumbled it out of my bag, pressed the emergency call button, and held it against the wheel while I drove. I kept my voice as calm as I could while explaining where I was and what was happening. They told me a highway patrol car was nearby and would try to locate me. It couldn't have been more than 10 minutes later when I saw the red and blue flash of lights in my side mirror. Relief flooded me so fast I almost started crying. The trooper's car pulled up beside me, slowing to match my speed. The moment that happened, the dark blue sedan behind me swerved hard to the right and shot off into the desert, its headlights bouncing across the rough terrain until they disappeared completely into the darkness. The trooper stayed alongside me for a while, making sure I was okay, before signaling for me to pull over. I did, just to breathe and collect myself. My legs were trembling so bad I had to sit there for a few minutes before I could move again. Later that night, I stopped in a small motel near Flagstaff. I didn't even unpack. I locked the door, drew the curtains, and sat on the edge of the bed trying to process everything. The image of that sedan disappearing into the desert played over and over in my head. It didn't make sense. There were no roads out there, no tracks, just miles of sand and brush. Whoever had been driving must have known those back areas well, or been desperate enough to take the risk. The next morning, I heard that state troopers had found a dark blue sedan abandoned several miles off the highway, stuck in soft dirt. The plates were fake. The inside was stripped. No papers, no wallet, nothing to identify who had been driving. They said the car had likely been sitting there since the night before. No one ever came forward. No one was ever caught. For a while after that, I tried to forget it, But driving alone at night never felt the same again. Every time headlights appeared in my mirror, I'd tense up. Every time a car followed me a little too long, my mind went straight back to that desert road. I stopped traveling long distances by myself. I'd rather leave before sunrise, drive during daylight, even if it took longer. What stuck with me most was how easily it all happened. It wasn't a movie moment or some dramatic chase. It was quiet, drawn out, almost patient. Whoever that person was, they'd followed me for hours, across state lines, into rest stops, back onto the open highway. It felt like I was being studied, tested, like they were waiting for the perfect moment to act. And the part that always sends a chill through me is that they could still be out there, somewhere along those same roads, driving the same kind of car, looking for someone else traveling alone through the night. Sometimes when I'm on the highway now, I catch myself checking my mirrors more than I should. Not for traffic, not for cops, but for those two steady headlights, blue-tinted, too familiar, just waiting in the distance.